We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day's going well. By the time you listen to us, it will be Thursday. We are recording it Wednesday night, and we have the good fortune of having Howard with us tonight. You all know who Howard is. He lives in western Minnesota, rural area, blue dot in a red sea. And how you doing today, Howard? I noticed you're sticking with the hat. You're sticking with the
Yeah,
hat, and there's probably a reason for it. You were talking about it before we went on. This whole nightmare with Liam Ramos apparently isn't over because they got him, they kidnapped him, they put him in detention, they brought him back, and that wasn't enough punishment for a 5-year-old child. They pushed it even further, correct?
yeah. I heard now they're sending him back, and they'll go to a detention center, and then they'll get um, back to where are they from? Guatemala, I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was Ecuador or Guatemala or
Or
something like
yeah,
that. So they're
maybe
going
it
to
was
put him in a
Ecuador. Yep,
they're
could
going
have
to put
been.
him in a detention camp anyway, and then send him to Ecuador or wherever he's going. Well, he Trump did say he's going to take the worst of the worst, and that little 5-year-old Liam, he looked dangerous.
Yeah, I know. I was sure scared of him when all the ICE agents were standing around him. Here's what we got to remember. They like to lock him up for a while before they ship him back, and some of them have been locked up for quite a while. And it's private detention centers, so it's owned by fucking billionaires. And from the reading that I was able to dig up, they get $168 per person that's in there. And at one time, they had 70,000 people in there. So, times
Shit.
168 times a day and then takes it, just keep adding it up from there. They're making the rich richer, is what they're doing. It ain't about immigration, it's about detaining them and collecting that, raping our government.
Well, that's one of the things we're noticing that there is grift everywhere we go. We know Donald Trump's family is going into these foreign countries and threatening tariffs and then cutting deals. And Donald Trump is, stealing tankers of oil and everything that's going on is about the grift. And it seems to not even click with the Republicans. They seem to be cool with it. Had this been Democrats, they'd be freaking the fuck out. Now I noticed you got another shirt on there too. It says "fuck ICE." No human. No human is illegal
On stolen land.
on stolen land. Right. Okay. And it's opportune that you would wear that or appropriate for wearing it because we got a big event coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah, Saturday afternoon, and it's going to be all over the nation. There's going to be no king marches, rallies, however you want to say it. But, that's kind of what got me started in my protesting is the first No Kings I went to. I don't remember if it's September or October, but it was in Morris, Minnesota, a small town. And out here, it's really fucking red. And we
Yeah.
had a couple hundred people that day, which was really surprising. And then from there, I went to Washington D.C. And then the ice bullshit started. And then I I I protested in Wilmer, and then we went back. My wife and I protested in Wilmer, and I've been down to the Whipple building. I want to get down to the Whipple building again because that's not done down there. They may have ramped down, but the other thing is they've got quieter about how they do things.
Yeah.
You know, so
I think I think that's important. People have to know. We went through the whole thing with Minnesota and the absolute chaos that was forced on Minnesota and the Twin Cities. And then they said they'd ramp it down. They did, but there's still like 600, 650 ICE people out here, and they're still fucking doing some bullshit. I mean, they're even at the airport now to do what we don't know, but they are there.
well, and I know a bunch of new vehicles have been shipped into the Whipple building too, and now we've heard rumors that's just a being at the airports is just practice to be at the polling booths. and we've heard that from more than one person out there. We'll have to wait and see. You know, I never got involved in the politics until this fucking shit show started coming through. And I've done that searching on that, how much voter fraud there was, and that's next to fucking. He's taken a non-problem and making it a problem and casting doubt. And then the other thing is, he wants to get rid of mail-in fucking ballots, and that's how he fucking voted last time Trump did. And you got to figure now we get direct deposit. We used to get our fucking Social Security checks through the mail. We used to get our paychecks a lot of times through the mail. We do our taxes through the mail. You know, I like to complain about our fucking mail system, but it's actually pretty secure when it comes down to it.
At
You
least it
know,
used to be. At least it used to
yeah.
be. When this is part and parcel to what Donald Trump does all the time. He creates problems and then he tries to fix them so he can be the hero, but he always fucks it up. You talk about the things he's done like that. The Iran war is one thing. There was no reason to start the war. He goes, starts the war. He thinks he's going to pull out of it quickly. And here we are in the middle of a potential quagmire because the only thing he can do now is put boots on the ground, which changes the whole fucking vibe to this thing. It puts us back into an Afghanistan situation that just went on for 20 years. So Donald Trump will create a problem and then he will fuck it up and then he'll spend a long time trying to walk back out of it without looking like he's dumb. And that's virtually impossible.
Well, and he's shipping, what was it, Marines and some Rangers over there. He's getting ready to put boots on the ground no matter how many times he tells you that he's not. He wouldn't be winding troops up over there if we weren't going to use them. Yeah, here's one thing I was trying to dig into the other day. He stole them fucking oil tankers from Venezuela. And of course, that didn't go into our treasury. It went into a bank account for fucking Donald Trump in Qatar. And I imagine it went to Qatar for some banking reasons and where we could, our government maybe can't go confiscate that. But because of Donald Trump, Qatar got bombed.
Yeah, that's a
I'm hoping at this point they confiscate fucking Trump's money and say that's a partial down payment to all the damage you caused because of starting this war. I because we'd never see that money as far as taxpayers go. As you and I, we would never see that money benefit us. So I hope the hell Qatar takes that money from him.
yeah, absolutely. I would, you and I have been around a long time and we know some stuff, but I wouldn't suggest we're the smartest people in the world. But don't you find it interesting or don't you find it confusing how Donald Trump will start this war, having trouble get out of it, and then say, well, we won this war. It's over. It's all over. But then send a demand list for a ceasefire. Why do you need to have a ceasefire on a war that you won and decimated the country? Especially when you say we blew out everything. But the other day, Iran is sending missiles over to Israel. It seems like you might be lying to us, Howard. You
Well,
don't think that, do you?
yeah, and if we would have fucking decimated them, how come we're so worried? And why do they got the whatever of Strait of Hormuz all plugged up?
Good question.
If we decimated them, then there should be no problems, no place. But of course, Trump's lying to us again.
You
And
know what the
I don't
funny?
know if you were. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is Donald Trump seems to think he's in control here, and that's what narcissists have to do. They have to be in control. So he sends them a 15-point list of demands so we can have a ceasefire. And they not only say "fuck yourself," they say, "Here's our list." And I was talking to Old Soul yesterday, and she was saying she'd heard and listening to some media from Iran that they're fully intending to run this thing uh, well past the midterms just to bury Donald Trump specifically. Now I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly possible because these Iran is set up where they can take this over the long haul. They can take it more than Israel can.
Well, they've been waiting for this day for a long time too. So they're
Yeah.
prepared. They're prepared. And then when you're fighting against a dumbass, it don't matter if he's got the largest army in the world. Bad management will take down a business. Bad management will take down the largest fucking army in the world, and that would be ours. You know, we got the shit show, Donald Trump. He's a reality game show host. And then we got the ex Fox News fucking part time commentator running us to beat hell for World War III. Here we go. But, you know, I think Iran's got the upper hand because they seem very cool and very fucking calculated. And that's the scary part about them.
You know, it's the scariest thing. And somebody said this yesterday, and I have to agree with them. And I can't believe I'm saying this. But when you hear stuff come out of Iran and you hear stuff come out of the government of the United States of America, I'm more likely to believe Iran before believe our country, our government, because they've got a track record of lying every time they open their fucking mouth. How terrible is that? That I don't support Iran. I don't think it's a great place. I think their regime sucks. I think they should be taken out. I don't think it was our business to do it and put at risk
No.
all the things we've got at risk. But at that point, at this stage, um, we've got imbeciles on one side, and we've got Iran, who I don't like. Um, they're both evil. Both sides are evil. The big difference is Iran's a little militarily smarter, a lot smarter than the United States. And that's problematic. I mean, you can't win a war if you're a bunch of dumb guys going up against some evil but smart guys.
Exactly. I seen a TikTok on that right before we came on here. On it's getting pretty fucking bad when you watch our government put out a statement. Then you got to look at the enemy to see how they respond, to see how bad our own government had lied to us. You know.
Yeah.
And then there was a TikTok made right before we come on with Donald Trump about, oh, they're going to do this, and they're going to give him a big gift because they just don't want to fight no more. And he wouldn't tell the reporters what that big gift was. And then I think Iran came out right after that and says, we haven't even talked to him, so we have no idea what this gift is about.
You know what I think that's about? This is because I know this personality.
Yeah.
He's trying to will what he believes into fruition. You know, he's saying we won the war, and he's hoping that Iran takes that as an off ramp and says, "Yeah, you won the war. Let's end this thing." But they aren't doing that. The big gift thing is, to me, why would they give him a big gift? You just bombed the shit out of our country. You killed a bunch of people. We're going to give you a gift because we're so scared of you. I don't believe that's true. But I do think that Donald Trump is trying to implant a suggestion. You know, things could go easier if you give me a big gift, you know, like the Nobel Peace Prize or the
Yeah.
World Cup or something like that. I think that's what Donald Trump is doing. He's trying to get psychological and throw that out there. You know, if you gave us a big gift, we might look favorably on you. And we know he's done this in the past with the tariffs and stuff. You know, you're going to get a tariff on this country, but if you cut us a deal, you pay us some money, you do something, maybe you don't get the tariff. Everything is transactional with Donald Trump. And I think that was a suggestion more than a comment.
Well, and it's like it goes back. He thinks that he's the art of the negotiator too,
Fuck, he's a
And
horrible negotiator.
yeah, yeah. I've never seen anybody as bad as him. Here's the other thing I don't understand, Mike. I got this lady that follows me on TikTok. We went to school together, and she's one of them Trump fans. And how can they still be supporting him at this time? And my next comment to her, because I said, I don't see how you can support a pedophile. blah, blah, blah. And then my next comment to her is going to be, pedophiles give me creeps, but so do people that defend them.
Yeah,
I've never been in a position where I've had to defend my president. If my president's doing wrong, I expect him to have to face up to it. I don't
absolutely.
I don't expect to have to defend him. And that's day in and day out with that fucked up shit show at Trump.
Yeah, I've run into those people too. I think I talked about this before. There's this guy I grew up with. I've known him since I was like 15 years old. We hung out together, the same group. He was kind of that one guy in the group that was the dumb one that you always picked on, but he was part of the group. You love the guy and all this stuff, but he was the guy that got picked on all the time because he was, well, not very bright. And so years later, he goes through his life. I go through my life, and my wife starts working at the airport. And my wife helped him get a job at the airport because he's retired too, and he wanted to fly and stuff like that. And I've known this guy all my life. I got in a fight protecting him one time, and and I got cracked really good too. I won, but I got cracked pretty good. But um, he will talk to my wife as if she thinks differently than me. And he'll see my social media, and he'll say to her, because he knows her pretty well too, and you say, "You don't believe all the stuff that Mike says, do you?" And she stands back and goes, "What? You don't believe all that stuff that Mike says?" And she says, "I believe everything he said, and I will say the same shit." And he seemed taken aback. Funny thing is when I see him, even though I've known him all my life, he stays the fuck away from me. And if he does talk to me, he's very careful what to say because he knows it doesn't matter if you're my friend. If you say some dumb shit to me, we're going to have a conversation, and this isn't going to go well.
Yeah, me too, and I live out here in a small town. The word's gotten out, Mike. The word has gotten out. And there's people
I,
that just plain fucking avoid me. And you know what? I don't care. I just plain don't care.
I don't either. I mean, I'd prefer to avoid those people. There's no point in arguing with them. And they're not very bright people. And if I don't see them ever again, I can live with it. I got two grandkids. I got a wife. I got two kids. I got a daughter-in-law. I'm good. I'm good. If
Yeah,
that's the only people that talk to me, I'm okay.
me too. And I love my grandkids and they're all brown. I've said that before. And it's yesterday, I drove 2 hours to play with my grandson for about an hour and then drove 2 hours home. And you know what? I
Worth it.
do that. Yeah. Oh, I do that every day of the week if I had the time to do it.
Yeah, my
God.
daughter-in-law was on a she got a certain amount of time because she had a baby. And when at the end of this month, we're going to go back to watching my grandson a couple 3 days a week. And it's a lot of time to put in and stuff, but we love doing it. I mean, the opportunity to get that connection and that bond with your grandkids is not something that everybody has the opportunity to do. Fortunately, my wife and I are retired, so we can go there and do that. And while he's sleeping, I can bounce down to the fucking garage and do about 3 TikToks and then come back and play with the kid again. So it all works out in the end.
Yeah. I love my grandkids and I'll say that story again. We were over there that one night playing at the sports arena with them, and then the next morning that place got raided by ICE, and my grandkids were scared to go out there after that. That's not the America that I grew up in. We got to take this America back. We got to get that shit show out of office. We got to show up on Saturday. You know.
We do. I mean, don't you think after all this time and all this talk and the waiting for Republicans to wake up and get some balls, it almost seems like we have to take this back by force. And I don't mean pitchforks and tiki torches. I'm talking about certainly by the election and the midterms. But we're a little over a year away from the new regime of members of Congress. Presumably they'll be Democrats. We got to do something between now and then because every day it seems to get worse. There's more damage, more people are violated. The Constitution is violated. The idea of waiting for the midterms is cool and all, but we've got to do something here. And I think No Kings is a good example. The more and more people that show up for No Kings, and I think they're looking at a pretty big crowd this time around, especially with the war and all this shit. It could get pretty crazy out there. I mean, they'll be nonviolent, but it will be a lot of people.
Oh, I hope so. I'm looking forward to it. In the morning, here I am. I'm going to be 63 next month. I never thought I'd have to go out and protest and do this shit. And in the morning, I gotta go to this meeting for the DFL caucus. I've never been fucking involved in politics before this shit show. And then in the afternoon, I'm gonna go protest and probably be in Morris again, because I gotta go someplace where it's close because of my time restrictions. And the other thing I like about being out in this area, I know when I get in a group of people like that, it makes me feel better because I'm not alone. So I'm part of that group making other people feel better because they're not alone.
Right.
That's a big thing too. So I
Yeah.
know that first one I went to, that got me going, and then I went to Washington, and no matter what, Washington, it was cool. And when I walked 9 miles that day, I got flat fucking feet, but I walked 9 miles that day, and I shook hands with every guard member that I seen. And it was like 2 days later, them two guards people got shot out there. That don't get talked about anymore either.
That's
That
right.
didn't
Yeah.
happen. That didn't have to happen. Trump put them in there to do what? Pick up fucking garbage. That's what they did. And they got shot. All because of him.
Well,
So,
we've got the airlines and we got these huge lines because of TSA. Donald Trump and the Republicans have had an opportunity to negotiate this deal out. It looked like there was something the Democrats and the Republicans were going to agree on that could get signed off, and we could get the TSA folks paid again and get a lot of the troubles out of the way. But Donald Trump refused it. Donald Trump stopped it, and the Republicans could override a veto if they got enough votes, but they don't have enough balls for that. So Donald Trump is the sole responsibility for TSA and whoever else is under the umbrella of DHS not getting paid. They want to make it look like, and Donald Trump wants to make it look like it's the Democrats' fault, but nobody's buying into that. And I think Donald Trump and the Republicans are realizing that now. So they're kind of stuck. They got to fix this thing because it's not just that TSA is not getting paid, it's that everybody who travels by air is being caused great delays in addition to higher prices because of the jet fuel prices. Donald Trump has done everything he can to fuck up the airline industry, and he's doing a good job of it.
I remember back before we had TSA, and then TSA went in, and for a while there were long lines, and they got the bugs worked out of it. It wasn't a bad system. I've never seen it fucked up like this before, and
No,
you look at everything that's fucked up in our politics, and there's one common denominator, and that's fucking shit show Trump. And what scares me, Mike, is there's still so many people that back him up. We gotta, even though we can finally get him removed, we still got to live with the stupidity of the people out there. And then the other day, I was talking to our mayor, and he's blue, but what is he, 77, 78? He's about the age of my brother. But anyway, he says, now when we get through all this, we can't focus on taking everybody to court. And I says, the hell we can't, Gene. I says, they'll have to make a committee that's all they do. It'll have to be separate, but it needs to be done. And he says, well, it didn't happen when Nixon did it. They let him go and that healed the country. And I said, that was a whole different circumstance. Nixon didn't get that far down the fucking corruption road. And the difference between him and Trump is the Republicans went in there and removed him. The Republicans are not going in and doing anything about Trump. and that's why we got to have convictions and we got to have accountability this time because they're not making it happen.
Yeah, I don't want to hear anybody say we just got to let it go and let the country heal. And like they said, well, they did that with Nixon. Well, you know what? Because they did that with Nixon, that's why we got Donald Trump. Donald Trump knew he would be untouchable. Had Nixon been taken to task and prosecuted and punished, Donald Trump would have thought twice about this. The Republicans would have thought twice about this. The thing about it is this has been going on 10 years. The idea just let it go and let us heal. No,
No.
because the one thing that upsets people more than anything over the 10 years is the lack of accountability that these people, these politicians, these elite people can do whatever they want and get away with it. People are tired of that bullshit and they need some accountability. There's plenty of people on Donald Trump's cabinet that need to be investigated, prosecuted, and convicted. There are people in corporations. There's everybody who's tied in the Epstein files. Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time, but I think that's what's going to be necessary in order for this country to heal, to see that people who did horrific things or corrupt things be held accountable. Because at this point, there's no trust in the government that anybody rich or powerful is going to be held accountable for anything. So we've got to change that narrative.
Yes, we do. And then, once we start holding them accountable, like you say, if we would have done that in the Nixon era, we might have not had this era. I'm not sure because Trump's so fucking stupid. He might have tried it anyway. But
Yeah.
what we would have had is the Republicans probably not doing nothing about it. At this point, if we would have held everybody accountable back then, I think the Republicans would have already have removed Donald Trump. But there's going to be a lot of them fucking going down just because of the complicity.
Pam Bondi is facilitating maybe the greatest cover up in the history of America. She needs to
Yes.
go to jail. Cash Patel, same situation. He needs to go to jail. And I'm going to make no caveats about it. They've committed crimes by covering up this whole Epstein thing, and they need to be held accountable for it. I don't know if you heard the story that came out. There's Pam Bondi released some other documentation and had to do with Donald Trump's situation with the top secret or classified documents. We know he stole a fucking truckload of the shit, put it in his bathroom and all over Mar-a-Lago. We know he did that. We know there were classified documents he should not have had. But there was further evidence that came out in these documents that Pam Bondi apparently inadvertently released that said Donald Trump had certain documents that like only 6 people in the country or the world could have seen. It was that high level. And he had it on a plane or at Mar-a-Lago or something, and he was showing it to everybody. And also in that document, it suggests that Jack Smith had evidence that there was some business or financial situation tied to these documents. Can you imagine that? Donald Trump actually selling these documents or getting favors for these documents from adversarial countries? Of course, that's what he's doing. Why else would he want them? So this comes out. Donald Trump was on trial or going to be on trial for these classified documents. And then because he ran for president, they let him go on it. There's more shit here. And this will come back to haunt him. He can't get away with this. This is literally treasonous. And I think that excuse the word, but trumps everything else. This is some serious shit.
Well, he's done so many things that are treasonous. That don't even surprise me. And here's one part that's going to be really hard to figure out because he drifts on every fucking thing he does. And he's worth a lot more money than when he went into office. How do we get that money back? It's going to be all over the fucking world. It's going to be hid. The other thing people don't, I got a book that I want to show you, but the other thing people don't talk about is he sued the fucking IRS for $10 billion. Well, who is the IRS, Mike? Who pays the IRS? It's me and
That's
you.
us.
And yeah,
Yeah.
You know, have you ever heard of a fucking president suing his own citizens? That don't even make sense to me. And people still stand behind him. This
Well,
stupidity scares me.
here's the thing is he gets all this money, but I'm wondering when he's going to get a chance to spend it because he's not going to do it while he's president because he just takes whatever he wants now. If he's planning for after the presidency, I highly doubt that he's going to be viable in 2029 when his term is up. I think he'll be gone well before that, either by way of impeachment, 25th Amendment, or choking on a big arch hamburger. One of those things is going to take him out. He can't continue this long. And then people say, well, his family will get it. Well, his family is entirely different situation. There is none of this immunity bullshit. They're just people. And if there's tainted money in the hands of Don Jr. or Eric or Ivanka or even Melania, people are going to be angry and they're going to go after him. And they aren't going to have Donald Trump to protect them. It's going to be ugly when they start going after these people. And trust me, they're going to go after them. They're not going to let this thing sit. The people are going to win elections. I'll tell you this. And Democrats need to understand this, whether they believe it or not. People are going to win elections by telling people how they're going to take down Trump and make him accountable for everything, him and his family and all the people around him. You show me you're a warrior and you're going to fight to take those fuckers down, you'll win elections.
I sure hope so because I believe like you do. If he does last through his presidency, I don't see that happening. But his family don't deserve none of the fucking spoils either.
No.
And they're all their shit's got to be shut down. So even after we take their money, they don't have businesses left to generate more money. I mean, I just feel they owe us everything they got. Look at the suffering they've caused in the United States.
Well, prior to being reelected and he was going through these trials and stuff, one of the things that New York State did is they pretty much shut down his business there, the Trump organization or
Yeah.
whatever, because of all the corruption and fraud. So that was shut down. And when this is over, you can bet there will be people going after those companies that his friends and family own because they may have gotten ill-gotten gains, and there will be a lot of investigation for this. Donald Trump can steal as much money as he wants. I don't think he'll ever have the opportunity to spend it. The other thing about Donald Trump, you have to understand, and I learned this with my dad too, narcissist. They may be slick and they may be able to con people out of money, but they are the easiest fucking people to play. And people are going to play him. You think Qatar is actually going to give him back the money? I don't think so. You're putting it in another country, and like you said, now they're getting bombed because of Donald Trump. You really think they're going to give him back the money? He's going to get fucked over so many times because he's so easy to do it to. Just remember the one axiom that I've always said: no matter what he does, even if he looks like he's won, he will always fuck it up. And I've been proven right pretty much every day. Everything he's ever done. Let's go into Iran, fuck that up. Let's do tariffs, fuck that up. He can't help himself. He's too arrogant and he goes too far and he always fucks it up.
I don't see how he's gotten to where he is in life the way he has a record of fucking stuff up. Um, I want to
Because
go
he keeps
back.
getting bailed out. He keeps getting
Yeah,
bailed out. Daddy
Daddy
bails him
bailed
out.
him
Russia
out.
bails
Yeah,
him out. Oligarchs, Jeffrey Epstein, they all bail him out.
that Russia thing's been going on for a long time, and they've investigated that. And that's got to come back out in the open. But I have a book here, Mike. I think I've showed you that before. But that was written when Biden was in office, and that was written by Cash Patel. He was
Yeah.
kissing up to Trump to get so he could lead the FBI, and
And
he
it
did
worked.
get it worked exactly. He got that position, but it says a plot against our king, and he's been portraying Trump as the king. It can't get any more plain than that. And if we look at fucking Trump, everything he's done, he pretty much said he was going to do. And people just, oh, that's not what he meant. And that's not what he said. And, oh, he just talks off the cuff. No, he warned us. You know, he said from day one he was going to be a dictator. Don't ever
Yeah.
hear about that no more. But he said that more than once. From day one, I'll be a dictator.
Donald Trump has this belief that if you can be corrupt if you do it in front of people's faces, then it's okay. And that's
Yeah.
the thing that people haven't learned about Donald Trump. He's kind of like Larry Bird. Do you ever hear the stories about Larry Bird when he played? He was very arrogant and very good at basketball. He'd go step up and say, "Are you guarding me?" And they say, "Yeah." "Well, you better get another guy. You can't guard me alone here. This ain't gonna work." And he says, "Oh, no, I got you." He goes, "Okay, I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go over in that corner. I'm gonna set up and shoot a three, and then I'm gonna go over the other side, set up and do a three." He tells them ahead of time, and then he goes and does it. Now, Larry Bird was a talented guy, but this is what Donald Trump does. He says things, and then everybody apologizes for him. Oh, he didn't mean that. And then we find out he did mean that. And I think he thinks he's safer when he says it out loud. It's better somehow. And frankly, the Republicans will just say, "Well, he said he was going to do it," and they forgive him for it. There's got to come an end to that at some point. But Donald Trump has played this game, this arrogance game, and it's worked for him. And I don't understand it because most people, I mean, if I came out here arrogant every day saying I'm the greatest podcaster ever, people would get tired of that shit and they would get mad at me and they would call me out for it. But it just seems to work with some people. Donald Trump could say he's the next coming of Jesus. And people say, yeah, he's the next coming of Jesus. And he makes threats, and Democrats will say, oh, he said this, even though there's no way he can do it. Like the SAVE Act, he's going to pass the SAVE Act. No, he's not. He can't. There's just no way to do it. But people, for some reason, buy what he says, which is ironic because he's a known pathological liar. Why are people so stupid to believe what he says?
That and he can be proven wrong on so fucking
Oh,
many
yeah,
points. How can
virtually
you keep?
everything.
Yeah, how can you keep proving a guy wrong and a liar and still stand behind him? You know, that's what I don't. That's why I go back. We still are going to have to live with the fucking stupidity that put him in office, and that's what scares me. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know that we can ever save the Trumplafucks, the real core of the cult. I don't think we can save them. They're going to believe until the day they die. But the problem for Donald Trump is that there are some more reasonable minded people that are Republicans, not much more, but they vote for Donald Trump because they happen to be Republicans. And there's a lot of independents where he had independents supporting him. And I think he's down to like 15% approval rating amongst independents. So there's a lot of people over and above the Democrats, the hardcore Democrats that don't like Donald Trump. And once you've lost them, and once you've lost the Latinos, and once you've lost a bunch of these people, it's hard to whip up support. We got people going into the midterms and they're dying for his endorsement. But, the guy down in Florida, the Republican that was running for the state legislative seat against the Democratic Emily Griffin, he got Donald Trump's endorsement. Donald Trump won that district by 10 points in November of 2024. Here we are in March of 2026. She wins. She barely wins, but she wins in a district that she had no business even being close on.
Well, she won in the district that he lives in, is what I heard. And I heard
Right.
there were three special elections in Florida, and we flipped two out of three, which isn't too bad considering where they're at.
In Florida, for fuck's sake.
Yes, yes. And one that he lived in. I love it. I love it. What could be better than that? He's heard that news and he probably fucking hates it, but who cares?
Well, when we have 26 special elections throughout the country and the Republicans lose every one, and then two state seats are flipped in Florida, this has got to be getting in the Republicans' head. They'll never admit to it, but this is a bad sign for them. This is not a good sign. And it's not like things are going to get better. Things are only going to get worse. So what's going to happen at the midterms could be historical. It's
Yeah.
that bad.
But and here we go again, talking about the fucking midterms, but they're all the way till November. And the thing that I've heard is if we flip in November, that there's going to be a lot of Republicans that resign. Why aren't they doing something about it now? And they probably won't lose as many seats in the midterm.
Well, for whatever reason, they're afraid of Donald Trump. I don't know if it's primaries or something more insidious. I'm not sure. But we are getting a lot of people resigning. We've got, what, like over 40 or 50 people that are Republicans that are not running again for reelection, or a couple that just stepped out. And I think we will see more, which makes it better for the Democrats, because once you don't have the name recognition, it makes it more of a ball game when you go into the elections, even in the red areas. You get somebody who doesn't have name recognition, and you get Donald Trump destroying the fucking country. It could get, I think Eric says he could see 50 to 60 seats going to the Democrats, which would put us in a strong position in the House. I don't know if it's going to be that great. It could be, might be fucking more for all that matters. There's going to be a lot of Republicans that run again that are going to do what the guy in California did. So, I think I'm just going to be an independent. I don't want to be a Democrat, but I sure as hell don't want to be a Republican. Donald Trump will have essentially destroyed the Republican Party, and it's going to be a long time before it can recover, if it can recover.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with that one because I still believe that the Republicans are going to stay home. So you get a moderate Republican in 2 or 3 years, whenever we run for president again, he can give a Democrat a run for his money. Just because the way they've labeled us as liberals and made woke, like go back to this. I'm proud to be liberal and I'm proud to be woke. And you're fucking right, I'm proud to be woke, because before woke become a political term, all it meant was caring about your neighbor. But
Yeah.
now, it's like if you're woke, you're radical. I didn't know caring about my neighbor was radical. So they still have the rhetoric. You know what I'm saying?
But the Republicans are in a tough spot. Once we get rid of Donald Trump, once we get rid of the Republicans in the House and the Senate, they've got to make a decision. They got to try to cultivate the Trump cult. But that's only like 25% of Republicans. It's not enough.
No.
Or they can try to rehabilitate and try to be more normal again. But if they go back to being normal and discount everything that Donald Trump did, then all of a sudden you lose the 25% of the people that love Donald Trump. There's too big a division in the Republican Party, and they're going to lose either way they go. So, what they decide to do when they're in a position and Donald Trump is not in power anymore, it's going to be a tough decision. And I don't know that they can win either way they go.
Well, I hope so, because yeah, it scares me. It scares me. I'm not saying we won't be in power for a while, and when we are, we got to get shit changed. And I like your attitude about let's not talk about Obamacare anymore. Let's talk about universal care. I'm with you. I'm on board on that. There's some things are going to get changed because this was such a shit show. But
I've
we
said that about
need to go ahead.
no, I've said that about the healthcare thing. The fact that 24 million people may be off healthcare and everybody else can't afford healthcare, this might make it a prime time to, like I say, drop the whole thing with Obamacare. Now, I will say Obamacare was a good thing.
Yes.
Republicans tried to do everything they could to weaken it or make it lesser, when we went through the process. But for me right now, as I'm looking at the future, we had what we had before Obamacare, which was nothing, and it was ridiculous. And I see Obamacare is kind of a half-ass stopover place to where we should be.
Yes.
I think if you're a a politician, especially a Democrat, and you want to get elected, there are two things you better be talking about. First of all, if you take AIPAC money, you're fucking gone. You're not getting the votes. And if you're not talking about universal health care, you're gone. Those are the two things that we need to adjust. We also need to make sure that when we get power, that we really look at adjusting the Supreme Court. Because even after Donald Trump's gone, the way the Supreme Court sits currently, it's not credible. It's not legitimate. And if we don't have a legitimate, um, trustworthy Supreme Court, that's one of the three legs of our branches of government. And if one of those legs are not working properly, we don't have a democracy that works properly.
Yeah, and I like how you bring their one leg of our government. You know, I was kind of a fuck off when I was in high school, and back then I couldn't have told you. You know, we got three parts of government, and that's another thing, Mike. Is once we get this shit show out of office, you know, he walked over our norms. We have to do something where if somebody walks over our norms, there's something that the other party can do about it because right now we do not have three branches of government. I don't even know why we have a Congress at this point in time because it's not being used. Same, you know, the three parts of the president and then the judicial, which is the Supreme Court, and then the fucking Congress. You know, and I've learned more about government since this shit show. And I was just preaching to somebody today, why have three parts of government if we don't use it? I don't see why Congress is getting paid because they're not being used. You know,
Well,
but we got to
that's
take
exactly
some
right.
norms and there's got to be, you know, you can't call them guidelines, but there's got to be where if he oversteps, whoever that president is, that we can take immediate action about it.
Yeah, we have to change some of the norms and turn them into laws that are absolute. We've got to have more reins over a president. I mean, no other president has really done this to this extent, but other presidents have taken a little too far a step, and we need to clamp down on that, and make sure that nobody else does it. Because the bad thing about it is, whether it be Democrat or Republican, and this is what Republicans don't understand, the fact that Donald Trump set these precedents and stepped over the norms, that means anybody who becomes president can do the same thing. And we got to put a stop to that right away. So when we get out of this, we need Congress to come in and say, okay, the president can't do this. The idea that the president can't be indicted because he's a sitting president, we got to get rid of that too. If no one's above the law, then let no one be above the law.
Yeah, we got to get rid of that two-tier judicial system. You know, I've been in the fucking court system. I've never been treated like he's been treated. You know, I would have been in fucking jail a long, long time. That's, you know, that's another part that just, you have two classes of money in this country and you have two classes of judicial system. And he proves it every day.
Yeah, he does. There has to be some dramatic changes, and once we get control of Congress, we need to shut down Donald Trump. Now, I said something. I'm curious as to what you think. And every time I say this, people go, "Oh no, that's not going to happen." Say the Democrats win the House and they win the Senate, and there's going to be nothing but investigations. Donald Trump will be basically impotent as a president. There'll be nothing he can do. Um, I would not be surprised if at that point Donald Trump just pouts, takes his football, and goes home and resigns, thinking that that might save him and maybe pardon himself before he leaves, which we don't even know that you can legally do, which you probably can't. But I could see him, be put in a position where he's got no way out, where Congress is against him. He can't accomplish anything. He's going to be embarrassed every fucking day of the week with the investigations and the hearings, that he just bolts. He just gets the fuck out of there, because narcissists do that when there's no way out. They run. What do you think about that? Do you think that he would actually resign himself?
You think big tough Donald Trump would play the victim? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I do. Yeah, I heard when you first come out with that TikTok, and I had to agree with that because he's gonna blame it on the Democrats about having his fucking hands tied, and he can no longer do what the people want. He'll put a spin on it, but yeah. And you know what? At this point, that maybe be the best thing that could happen until we take the presidency back, because I think we can keep that little short fucker reined in a little bit. But here's what scares me: we get the Speaker of the House. Who do you think that's going to be? Hakeem Jeffries?
Could be.
That's like fucking putting a dud in there. I used to like him. He's a great fucking orientator. But when it comes to doing shit, he has his thumb up his ass. Him and Chuck Schumer need to fucking go.
Well, the thing is, he's kind of co-opted by the Nancy Pelosi situation with money. He's getting AIPAC money. I think what we're seeing here is everybody got AIPAC money. A vast majority of Congress did, Democrats and Republicans. Nobody really talked about it. Now it's getting talked about. Now it's being exposed. We're in a war because of Israel. I think the sentiment for Israel is starting to take a turn. I mean, you think about this. Israel is Israel. We give them tons of money. They have tons of money. They're constantly trying to get us into a war. They got us into a war in Iran. I think the sentiment for Israel is going to go south a bit. And if we find out that people are taking money from AIPAC, they're going to have a problem. We're already seeing some of them saying, "Yeah, I'm not taking any more money from AIPAC," because they know they're going to get voted out if they do. And I think that'll be a good thing. There's no reason that a government should have their hands stuffing money in the pockets of virtually every member of Congress. If that isn't a red flag, I don't know what the fuck is.
Not only a government, Mike, a fucking foreign government. And if we want to know the truth about fucking APAC, that one guy that just got elected over Jasmine Crockett or in the primary, he took APAC money and he explained it because he wanted to have the same advantage as the people that were running against him. And that was a good argument. But that should be fucking illegal in the first fucking place to have any type of money from any other government deciding our votes in the House and in the Senate.
Well, the thing about it is they're going to go after Tallarico pretty heavily. He's a Democrat in Texas. He's running against Cornyn and or Paxton. He's ahead of them both. The Republicans are going to go after him, and he can say that he took the AIPAC money just so he could be on par and compete. And I get that. But if you're going to blame Tallarico for taking AIPAC money, let's go down the list of every Democrat sitting in the House of Representatives and the Senate that take AIPAC money. If we're going to give him shit, let's give them all shit, including Amy Klobuchar.
Yes, and I did that, Mike. And here's one thing that pissed me off: is more Democrats are taking that AIPAC money than fucking Republicans. We
Yeah.
always want to think the Republicans are the bad, but we got some shit's got to be changed in our government, and that just pissed me off to the core when I found out more Democrats took it than Republicans. But let's be honest about it. We got to get that stopped. We just can't have foreign money in our government. We just can't have it.
Well, tell me how much you heard about AIPAC before this last year. You never heard about it. It was under the
No.
table. You got AIPAC. You didn't think anything about it. We're an ally with Israel. Then we find out we're sending them $50 billion a year. What do we get for that? What do we get for?
You know what they get, don't you?
Oh, I know what they
get. Fucking health care.
Yeah.
One thing they get.
Well, and that's one thing we need to say is that, look, if we're going to pay them money and they have universal health care, and we're the only industrialized nation that doesn't have universal health care, time to get on it. But this is what I mean. People always say, What are you going to do? What can you do? Keep talking, keep getting loud. That's why I'm saying I
Yes.
don't want to talk about Obamacare anymore. I want to talk about
No.
universal health care. That was a compromise, kind of a weak compromise compared to what everybody else gets. We need to shove that away and say, okay, you don't want to fund that? Fuck you. We're doing universal health care. We're fucking doing it. And you either support it or you get the fuck out.
You brought up how much we hear about AIPAC before, a few years ago, but that's like universal health care too. I'll just run some fucking numbers that I know. There's 33 industrial countries in this world. 32 of them have universal health care. So that tells me that 32 of them are wrong and one is right because we're the only country that don't have it. So we must be right and 32 must be wrong. Or it could be the other way. But let's, what I love about the country we live in now and that we got social media. I never could dig up them facts. Them facts never got talked about on regular streamlined main American news. It's people like you and it's people like me, and there's a lot of people that are a lot better at it than me out there putting them numbers out there so we know what they are. I love social media because we can find out about so much more stuff nowadays because it's not streamlined by the billionaires.
Well, it is social media is good too because average Joes like you or I or anybody else out there can talk about this stuff, the stuff
Yeah.
that the media refuses to talk about. Uh, you know, it's amazing how the media really does kind of control things. We've been hearing about this war. We know we don't get much information, no bad news from mainstream media here. We know that Iran has pretty much shut off their internet, so it's hard to get access with that. It is illegal in Israel to take photos or do reports of the damage in Israel. So we've basically got a blackout with media, with what's really going on. I think if people really understand what was going on, they might have a different sense. I mean, most people are against it already, but I think they'd be even more so if they really knew what the fuck is going on. Because I think Israel's getting hit pretty hard, and they just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But they can't block, even though they can block mainstream media and hamper social media, they can't eliminate it completely like they
No,
can mainstream media. I think, social media provides us such a better access than any other media ever did before.
well, you got people over in Israel right now with their phones recording shit and then texting it to somebody outside the country. A little hard to control that. And
Yes.
we will, I think when this is all said and done, I think we'll be seeing some pretty horrific stuff. I'm still not convinced that we've only lost 14 people in this war. I hope that's true, but I find that hard to believe with all the military installations that have been bombed. I saw a video, somebody claiming that a jet was shot down, an American jet. The likelihood of that not happening at all in this kind of war is a little surprising. I think there's a lot of information that we're not getting. And when we do find out about it, we're going to be appalled and we're going to be very angry that we were kept in the dark.
Yeah, but I think we're getting more than we would otherwise. It's just like our ice, what went on in Minneapolis with the shootings of Alex, Freddie, and Goody. You
Yeah.
know, them fucking ICE agents went to Italy to, supposedly protect the Olympians, and they got the shit beat out of them because the world had seen what kind of people those people were. And they wouldn't have seen that if it was left up to our mainstream media to inform the world because they didn't do it. It was people like you and people like me and the other hundreds of thousands of people in Minneapolis that took films with their phone and got them out on the internet. We let the whole world know, and yeah, they got it pretty locked up over there, but I think we're getting more than we could have ever gotten before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
So,
I was just reading something on a publication called Mediate. Mediaite. And it said President Donald Trump slammed the Supreme Court on Wednesday for striking down his tariff policies, singling out two of the justices he appointed and claiming they sicken me. I wonder how long it's going to take before Donald Trump pisses off the Supreme Court enough when they start finding against him. I mean, there's a bunch of cases coming up that he could lose. He lost the tariff case, which he should have. I mean, the
Yeah.
Constitution very specifically lays it out. It's hard to find a loophole there. But this is what you're going to get from Donald Trump. He's going to start biting back at all these people that aren't doing exactly what he wants to do. And as things get tougher for him, he's going to get more angry. And this is ultimately how it crashes. He ends up throwing everybody under the bus, and then he's got nobody.
Yeah, he appointed them judges, but if he alienates them, they're not going to do anything for him. People can only take so much shit, no matter what side they're on.
Well, especially if it looks like he's on his way out. If he looks
Yeah.
like he's on his way out, they're going to jump on that bandwagon and help push him over the cliff. And Eric and I have talked about this a lot. We're waiting for that period when the avalanche starts, and then there's a big monkey pile on Donald Trump. Even the people that supported him will jump on him because people love seeing a guy succeed, but they love even more seeing him fail and crash and burn. And that's coming. We're even seeing the starting stages of that at this point. Things are coming out that he can no longer hold back regarding Epstein, regarding his classified documents. Things are slipping through the cracks, and eventually the dam breaks, and there's no stopping it.
Oh, and I believe that it's going to be epic to watch too, because when that dam breaks, there's going to be so many of his own people turning on him to save their own skin. Is he's not going to be able to handle that. It's going to be like a dog going down in a dog fight. He's not going to do well.
Well, Kristi Noem is out. Her partner slash lover, Corey Lewandowski. He epitomizes, I think, the attitude of people in Donald Trump's cabinet. He's had so many problems. He should not be in this in the administration at all. But he basically was trying to leverage people for money to get contact with Donald Trump or get bills passed or that sort of thing. So he was basically coercing people for money. And then they got some complaints about it. And he basically said, well, I don't give a shit because Donald Trump will just pardon me. If these people, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Corey Lewandowski, are counting on Donald Trump pardoning them, I'd be a little nervous because when it starts to fall apart, Donald Trump's going to be too busy and won't worry about anybody else but himself. And if he croaks on stage someplace, he won't be able to do it. If these people are planning on pardons, they may be disappointed like the J6ers were in the first term.
Well, like you always say, he's a transactional person, and what does Lewandowski have to offer for a
He's a
pardon?
he's a nobody.
Exactly. How about Kristi Noem? What does she have to offer for a pardon? You
Have you
know,
noticed you haven't heard much about her lately, though? I
not
mean,
nothing. I'm surprised about that. But here's the other thing. I see Donald Trump as like, I don't know how I can classify him because I'm an old convict, but if I dealt with him, I'd label him as a snitch because once he starts going down, he's gonna fucking try to fucking throw everybody under the bus. But when he's top of the heap, he's people are going to throw him under to save themselves, but he's going to try doing the same thing. But when you're at the top of the heap, he's the one they're going to be going at.
yeah, and he's going to be trying to blame everybody else like he always does. Kristi Noem's a good example. She was in the inner circle with Donald Trump. Presumably, she was protected by Donald Trump. She gets fired because she has the audacity to embarrass him. She's exiled to some job that doesn't exist, and now we don't hear about her a lot. If I'm Kristi Noem, I'm a little nervous because of all that went down with ICE. There's a lot of crimes against humanity, and she was the one that was leading the pack at that point. So she is culpable for this shit. And people are going to go after her. And she doesn't mean anything to Donald Trump anymore. He'll walk away from anybody. I mean, take a look at some of the people who were his buddies, Scaramucci and some of these other. He didn't give a fuck about them. He'll sue them. So if Kristi Noem, she's probably staying under the radar because she knows she's in some deep shit. Donald Trump's not going to save her anymore. There's no value in saving Kristi Noem at this point, and she is potentially in trouble once we get the new Congress and they say, Kristi, we need you to come in here and fucking talk. It's going to be a problem for her, and anybody else that leaves at this point is going to be exposed and vulnerable to prosecution. And if they think Donald Trump's going to save them, they're going to be probably surprised that they aren't.
Well, and you know, the deal with her is the budget for the advertisement, right? That he said,
Right.
well, I didn't approve that. How do you get that big a fucking budget without having it approved? You know, he threw her under the bus and people actually went with that. But how do you get that big a budget without nothing being approved?
Well, that's a good point. Donald Trump is known for saying, I didn't know anything about that. But if one of your members of your cabinet gets a budget for $220 million for anything, how can the president say, I didn't know anything about it? Because if he does say he didn't know anything about it, it doesn't sound like he's got a good handle on his job or the people around him. Sounds like anybody can do whatever the fuck they want. The fact is, she did those advertisements, and they were pretty professionally done for her. And Donald Trump liked them. He said, oh, I like those. You need to make some more. And I tend to believe Kristi Noem, even though she's a pathological liar too. But the idea that Donald Trump said, hey, I really like them and do more, I would believe that because Donald Trump is very big on optics and looking good and, you know, ratings and all that stuff. But the moment she said he knew and there was kickback, then he acted like I didn't know anything about it. I think Donald Trump knew everything about it. He just did not want to take the responsibility or take the blame for it. So he threw her under the bus and fired her ass. And I think she's probably a little pissed off about it by now. That's the other thing. He's going to piss off a lot of people. And once they're fired, what's holding them back from talking some shit?
Exactly. And then yeah, bringing shit out. And then how about some of these countries around the world? I'm surprised more Epstein shit hasn't come out through the back door because of the way he treats people and pisses people off.
Well, I think there's so many people in that whole mess that are going to be implicated. I think with the money involved and the power involved, people have really held back on exposing stuff. But in spite of that, stuff is still leaking through. Donald Trump first said, I'm not in the files. And then he said, I can't be implicated in the files. And now we've got these documents that say he specifically assaulted and abused a girl of 13 or 14. So the facts are there and it's legitimate because the FBI looked into it 3 or 4 times. And I understand that Epstein maybe had a settlement with her. So that would suggest there's some legitimacy to it. If that's what's out so far, more is going to come out, whether it be from foreign countries. I think that's a distinct possibility because they don't have the restrictions or the pressure from Donald Trump. They fucking hate Donald Trump now. So if they can, anybody that has evidence at this point outside the country that can take him down, they'd be a fucking hero in this country.
No doubt. No doubt. He needs, yeah. But, so much has already been exposed, but the people are still, so many of them are backing him up. That's what I just don't understand that.
Well, the problem, everybody says that. Why can't he be arrested? Why can't anything be done? And what you have to understand is we've got no help from the Congress because it's run by Republicans and they're sycophants to Donald Trump. But more importantly, people that need to be investigated, indicted, prosecuted, if they're Republican or tied to Donald Trump, it's not going to happen because Donald Trump controls the DOJ. Pam Bondi is the AG. There are tons of Republicans that need to be investigated and prosecuted, but it'll never happen as long as Pam Bondi and the Republicans control the uh, the DOJ. So that's why, when we talk about the election in 2028, we may have to wait till then to get some accountability from these folks. As long as Donald Trump controls the DOJ, um, nobody's going to get investigated. Nobody's going to get prosecuted that are committing crimes, and that includes anybody tied to the Epstein files. I mean, if we prove unequivocally that Donald Trump assaulted and abused a 13-year-old girl, you think Pam Bondi's going to set up an investigation and prosecute him? No, they're going to do what they did. They're just going to sit on it and not do anything about it for a long time.
That and then there's that other one that supposedly they performed the abortion on, didn't they supposedly throw it in the river or something like that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit in them Epstein files, and like you say, it covers a lot of important people around the world, and that's part of the clogged system getting them out there too, you know. But it needs to be for us to heal. It needs to be.
I think, unfortunately, and I think once we find out all we need to know about the Epstein files and all the things that have happened, I think this country would be horrified, and I think we'll never be the same. I think we'll find out things that we never imagined would ever happen in a civilized society. We've already heard things that take us aback, but I think we've only scratched the surface as to the crimes and the cruelty and the abuse that this group of people committed. Once you get a certain amount of money and a certain amount of power and carte blanche to do whatever the fuck you want, it can go fucking crazy. And I think it did go crazy. And I think there are still people doing this shit right now, maybe not amongst this group, but in other groups around the world. This is a sickness in the world in general. All we can deal with is what happened with Epstein at this point because it's there in front of us. And the fact that we don't do anything about it just adds to the sickness that we have in this country. I've said before, when you look at what's going on in the Epstein files, and I'm almost at a point where if any of that or all of it is true, all we have left is to burn down this motherfucking country and start over because it's bad.
Well, what I think too, you know, like you say, it probably went on forever. And if
Yeah.
we can go after what we can go after, but what doesn't get gone after, it's still going to go on and it's going to build again. I think it's a lot bigger than, like you say, it's a lot bigger than what we think, you know, and it's getting hit, you know, because of the power of the people, the billionaires that are involved in it is keeping it pretty tight, at least up to this point. You know, I don't think we'll ever expose it all.
Probably not. Hopefully, we get enough to hold the people that are involved responsible. We've got oligarchs that have gotten away with this for literally decades. Les Wexner's in his 80s, and he was the beginning point with Epstein as far as funding him. There's all kinds
Mhm.
of stories as to why he tied up with Epstein. Um, it's just it's really disappointing to know this stuff is going on, and it's one of those things where you think, God, somebody should have done something, or maybe I could do something. It's something that anybody with a normal mind and a normal heart would have stopped or would have exposed right from the beginning, but nobody did except for the victims slash survivors. But the people in power chose not to believe them, not to listen to them. And it's a scary situation when you know you've been harmed in such a evil way, and then nobody cares. I mean, over and above the actual attacks, the fact that nobody cares or nobody's going to help you or support you, there's got to be a certain amount of PTSD there, and certainly a lack of trust in our U.S. government.
Oh, I couldn't imagine being one of them victims and going through what they've gone through and then reporting all that stuff. and not have anything done about it. And then how many have come forward and how many survivors are there? And it's like we give them no credibility at all. That's,
No.
yeah, that's got to be hard on them people besides what they went through. Just not having anything done about it or having people believe
Yeah. We're getting closer to the end here, and a couple of things I want to bring up too. We've got the DHS shut down. We've got the mess at the airports. We've got ICE out there. Now Donald Trump's even saying, if I have to, I'll send the National Guard out there. Another group of people getting paid money to not do anything, for fuck's sake. The Republicans want to end this because they know they're getting the blame for it. And they had a deal with the Democrats, and then Donald Trump shot it down. Do you think Donald Trump will just ride this out forever and fuck everybody else? Or will the Republicans get enough balls to say, Donnie, you need to straighten this shit out right now? How do you think that's going to end up? How long do you think it's going to go?
oh, Donald Trump's going to string it out as long as he can. As far as the Republicans have enough balls to get anything stopped, the only thing I ever heard is if he goes into Greenland, we're going to take him out of office. Well, then he goes over fucking Iraq. I don't think none of them Republicans have any balls.
No, they are. They are a group full of cowards, and they're going to have to live with that after this is all said and done. So when you bring up going over to Iran, like I said, Donald Trump assumed that this is be something that would end pretty quickly, and now it hasn't. Now he's trying to act like it's over, but Iran is saying, "No, it's not over." Israel wants them to continue. Donald Trump talked to Saudi Arabia, the crown prince over there, and he encouraged Donald Trump to keep bombing. Donald Trump's not smart enough to understand that Israel and Saudi Arabia and some of these other places are just playing him. He's the one president that was dumb enough to get played by these people, and he continues to do it. The only problem is he's gotten into this. He thought he'd get out quick and easy, unscathed, but now he can't. And I just don't know that he knows what the fuck to do. The only thing he knows how to do is double down, triple down, and act tougher, but it ain't working. And if that means boots on the ground, I'm afraid of what might happen with that. You've got a Royal Guard there with 250,000 people, and you send 5,000 Americans in there. That could get very fucking ugly very quickly.
And I think it will be boots on the ground. It's just a matter of getting them over there. They're already in front. I hate to say it, but I think that's what it's coming to. Donald Trump don't know how to back out. Iran's not letting him. You know, but this is what they voted for. That's all I can say.
Uh, that's unfortunate. Donald Trump keeps saying, they're decimated. They want to give up. They want to give us everything. They want to give me a present. They want to do all this stuff. And then Iran comes out and says, yeah, we're not negotiating. We're not ready to negotiate yet. And if we do negotiate, we want an apology. We want retribution financially for this stuff. Donald Trump's not going to do that because that'll appear as though he's weak, and he is weak. Um, I don't see how this ends anytime soon. And the longer it goes, the worse for Donald Trump and the Republicans. And unfortunately, the potential for Americans and other people to die in a fucking senseless war.
Oh, I think we're going to have quite a few casualties before it's done. And I hate to be the doomsday guy, but you know, if they hit us over here, they'll call it a terroristic attack. But that's what they know how to do, and they're going to do what they know how to do.
Right.
And can you really blame them? They're going to have to hit us any way they can because we are a big, powerful country. But Donald Trump is putting us as American citizens living on United States soil at risk too, because I think we will get hit over here. It may not be bombs from across seas. It might be, some
So,
sleeper cell or whatever it is. But they're going to have to. They got to retaliate. You can't blame them for retaliating.
no, no, you can't. You know, the things I find most disappointing. You and I grew up in the same era. We went to school in the 60s and 70s, and we were taught about our government, taught about wars and all that stuff. In all those years, you and I were led to believe that we were the good guys, that God was on our side. We were trying to make everything better for everybody else in the world. We were being the world policemen, but we were doing the right thing. We were the good guys. And as I sit here at 65 years old and I look at what's going on now and I look back from the past, Vietnam and all that stuff, we ain't the good guys. And that's
No.
disappointing to me.
Yeah, and I've said this on one of the first shows that I was on with you. What I'd like to do is go to some of these countries like Vietnam, maybe even Korea, and see what their history, how their history books teach it compared to the ones I got taught in school. Because, you know, of course, we're going to be taught to learn that we're the good guys, but we can't. We can't be every time. We just can't be, and we're definitely not this time.
Well, you know, when you've got oligarchs and people that are wealthy dictating what's going on in our government, it's not surprising that there might be some questionable things going on, whether it be now. I mean, Eisenhower, before he left office, he warned us against the military industrial complex. And I don't know that people understood what that meant at that point. We were talking 1960, and people didn't quite get it. But now we can see our Defense Department has a budget of $1 trillion, three times as much as China, probably six times as Russia, 100 times as much as every other country. And why do we have $1 trillion? And then they have the audacity to say, well, if we're going to fight this war, we need another 200 billion. We don't need that much money for the Defense Department. It can only be going one place, in the hands of the military industrial complex and rich people. It's become a money pit, a money well for rich people just to take it and do whatever the fuck they want. We need to put some harsher controls on where the money goes and how it's allocated by our government. It's absolutely ridiculous.
A lot of that money that we spend on our military should go towards renewables. And we always talk about, where Iran ships most of its oil to China. And and we depend on that oil too. Maybe not from Iran, we have a lot of our own, but I think, and I've done a lot of reading about China. They're really putting money into their renewables. And here we got a fucked up shit show president that's shut down almost every renewable thing we had going on in the United States. It didn't matter if they were almost finished because then his oligarchs can't make money off the oil. The way we can quit warring with the Middle East is to invest in our renewables where oil is not that important anymore.
Well, and we had been doing that and it had been working. Gas prices had come down, and now we had at least $1 a gallon to gas. And you have a small business and you use trucks and stuff. How much impact does gas going up $1 a gallon or $2 a gallon? It's got to have some impact even on your business. You're not over
Always,
the road or anything like that, but you spend a lot of money on gas.
it's going to make a big difference. I'm gonna have we go through a lot of these, so we're going to have to start putting surcharges on. And I don't think I've had surcharges since we were in the deep midst of COVID, you know. And before that, I've never had a fucking surcharge on. It's a shit show of this regime. It's gonna, and the thing is, it affects me, Mike, but it affects every customer I have because they gotta make the difference. Because I can't afford to go out and do work if I can't make no money doing it.
You know, we were just talking about healthcare. Um, and healthcare, what people don't understand is currently in the USA has the highest healthcare costs in the world. As of 2024, the national health spending reached 5.3 trillion, 5.3 trillion annually, or $15,474 per person. That's without universal health care. If we had universal health care, it would run between 3 and 4 trillion per year. So the money's there. We're already spending maybe 2 trillion more than we need to by not having universal health care. Now, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a genius, but 3 sounds like a lot less than 5. And a lot of people would get health care with spending 3 as opposed to people not getting health care at 5 trillion. It's not a hard thing to fucking figure out, but apparently it is for Republicans. We would save money by having universal health care. And this is just the messaging that the Republicans have constantly put out. The problem is the people that would lose money would be health insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies who have been raping us for decades. Now, I was talking to Old Soul about this. She works for a health insurance company. And she said, I don't know if I'd lose my job if we had universal health care, but I'd be pretty shitty if I said, we need to keep going the way we're going just so I can keep my job and everybody else can suffer because they don't have health care. She's kind of a selfless gal like that, as we know. And, it would take some adjustment and stuff, but I'm okay with insurance companies not making a ton of money. If you look at buildings, if you wonder how insurance companies are doing, go to any major city, look at the biggest buildings in that city, see who owns those buildings. It's almost always insurance companies.
And I don't want to change the subject because I want to say a couple things about healthcare, but another major place that insurance company makes money is the subsidies to the farmers because they handle the fucking crop insurance.
Right.
And that makes insurance companies rich too. What people don't understand is if we had universal health care, the reason it costs us less money is because by being able to go and take care of our health, we'd have healthier people and it would stop a lot of anxiety in this country because, it comes down to college and healthcare. It shouldn't depend on your fucking job or the military to achieve either one.
The idea that only rich people can get health care and education is a problem that needs to be fixed. We've got
Yeah.
in terms of education, I've said before, I think we have an epidemic of stupid in this country to the point where it's a crisis level. Case in point, 49% of the people vote for a convicted felon. Um,
Yes.
and if it's at a crisis level, we should give FEMA money and FEMA give everybody the money to go to college because we need more intelligent, educated people in this country. Every other country in this world is surpassing us in technology and that kind of stuff. We've got a small group of people that have, technological abilities and stuff. We could be much more powerful if more people were educated and understood and had more opportunity. Um, but instead, the oligarchs want to grab the money. They're short-sighted about this. If we could give people free education, we could have a stronger country. People making more money. And guess what? When they make more money, they do 2 things. They buy more shit and they pay more taxes. Just saying. Go ahead.
Yo, I thought you froze up. You got to remember, Carnegie set up our fucking school systems and he wanted workers. He didn't want intelligence. And to this day, we've dumbed down our people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question about it. Well, we're at that point, Howard. I know,
Yeah.
you're like me, you're an older guy, so we get fatigued earlier. Whenever I'm talking to Ed, we get to that hour and a half point. Ed's got to run to the bathroom. We probably have to do that too. So I'm going to wrap things up. Howard, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on here. I do TikTok under Howard Paulson. and I do a lot of political stuff. Going to be 63. Never thought I'd have to, but here I am, and
Yeah,
protesting.
I give you credit, Howard. You put your full name on your TikTok, so you expose who you are to the world. And what I appreciate is you don't give a fuck. I have a lot of respect for people who don't give a fuck.
People didn't like me that well to start with, so
There you go. There you
yeah.
go.
So
I I enjoy pissing people off, as my wife will attest to, and so this gives me the opportunity on TikTok and the podcast. Well, those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.